In recent weeks, a bizarre story has been making the rounds in both real estate and stock market circles. A California real estate company on the brink of death suddenly saw its stock price skyrocket by 10 times. That company is Opendoor, founded by Eric Wu. Some viewers are calling it the new Wolf of Wall Street, saying this is way more exciting than just buying a house. But others are warning that this feels too much like 2008, a bubble where the small-time investors, the leaks, are the ones who get crushed in the end. The greater the disagreement, the more it signals that the market is at a turning point. Today, we're going to break down the true story of how this real estate darling fell into the gutter of junk stocks, only to be pumped up by retail investors. We'll explore the real opportunities and the even bigger risks that lie at the intersection of real estate and the stock market. For anyone investing or buying a home, you'll want to be careful. Before we start, please take a moment to like this video. Your support is my motivation to keep creating new content. For my longtime viewers, the name Opendoor might ring a bell. Back when the company was still a high flyer, I made a video about them. At the time, I had personally visited several of their properties and came away expressing my concern that their business model could lead to significant losses and hurt their stock price. Well, that episode didn't go over so well. It turns out many of my viewers were actually Opendoor employees. They saw their own company being criticized and weren't happy about it. They left comments refuting my points, and to be honest, it was a pretty unpleasant experience. But I completely understood where they were coming from. The company's founder, Eric Wu, had the backing of major funds like SoftBank. At its peak, Opendoor was a market unicorn with a valuation of $18 billion. Deep down, I genuinely hoped their innovative model would succeed. They pioneered a real estate model called iBuying. You could go online, type in your address, and Opendoor's algorithm, a very trendy buzzword back then, would give you an instant cash offer. Opendoor would then buy your house, renovate it, and flip it for a profit. Objectively speaking, this business model was incredibly appealing. It promised to eliminate in-person negotiations, hidden defects, and closing delays, all while protecting novice buyers from being taken advantage of. It seemed perfect, a seamless online transaction. The industry hailed it as the Amazon of real estate. So what happened? What event suddenly kicked this unicorn into the gutter of junk stocks? Any investor or person with a bit of life experience understands that if something sounds too perfect to be true, you should be careful. For Opendoor, a single event was all it took to turn it from a darling of the investment world into a junk stock. That event was the Federal Reserve's aggressive interest rate hikes. In 2022, the rate hikes caused Opendoor to lose $900 million in a single quarter. The value of the thousands of homes on their books was plummeting. If they didn't sell them off quickly, their balance sheet would be a disaster. The faster they had expanded, the more devastating their losses became. Imagine the stress of trying to sell just one house in that market. Now imagine having to sell thousands of them. The company was burning through cash every single day. So why couldn't they just cut their losses and sell quickly? This goes back to the warning I gave in that original video from my perspective in the construction industry. If you're investing in real estate stocks, you need to understand one thing. Almost no construction project ever comes in on its original budget. Delays and cost overruns are incredibly common. A friend who was renovating his own home thought he could get it done in 4 months. It took over 6, and he went 30% over budget. Now imagine Opendoor dealing with this not just for one house, but for thousands. A delay on one project leads to delays on all of them, and the budget overruns pile up. By 2025, the stock had hit a low of 51 cents and was facing the threat of being delisted. It took only 2 to 3 years for this $18 billion unicorn to become a penny stock. To make matters worse, Opendoor's own management started selling off their shares. As any investor knows, that's a terrible sign. If you believe in your company, you're supposed to double down during the tough times. But here, the founder himself was cashing out. To most investors, it looked like even the founder didn't believe they could survive. It was a total rejection of the very algorithm he had created. But just at this moment, When everyone had given up hope, one person stepped in. He wasn't a Wall Street titan, but with his own efforts, he sent Opendoor stock soaring by 10 times. A new Wolf of Wall Street had arrived. During my trip to New York, I took a full day to visit the old neighborhood of Jordan Belfort, the real-life character from The Wolf of Wall Street. In the movie, Leonardo DiCaprio's character used nothing but his words, cold calling, and media hype to pump up worthless penny stocks, luring in retail investors, and leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. History is repeating itself. With Opendoor as a junk stock, a real-life Wolf of Wall Street made his move. His name is Eric Jackson. He's not a big shot on Wall Street. He's a small fund manager from Canada. But he copied the Wolf of Wall Street playbook, targeting a near-bankrupt stock. Here's how he did it. First, he bought 200,000 shares, which didn't cost much since it was a junk stock. Then he started publicly calling out insane price targets. He first aimed for $82 a share, which was a 160-fold increase from its 51-cent low. But he didn't stop there. He then shouted a target of $500. This number was carefully chosen. The difference between 51 cents and $500 is a nearly 1,000 times increase, a highly inflammatory and exciting slogan. He was intentionally creating a meme stock. For those who don't know, a meme stock's value isn't based on performance or fundamentals because those are already in the toilet. Instead, its price is driven by social media hype. Through platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and online forums, a community of retail investors uses memes, slogans, and a sense of shared purpose to pump a dying stock to the moon. They've even held concerts to promote a junk stock and increase its media exposure. In short, this army of retail investors sent the stock soaring. At one point, the daily trading volume of Opendoor accounted for 1/10 of the entire US stock market. In a very short time, the price shot up from 51 cents to over $5, a 10x increase. The retail investors celebrated, calling it a victory of the common person over Wall Street. They even managed to get the CEO of Opendoor fired. But just because the stock has multiplied by 10, does that mean the company's business performance will too? What new and enormous risks can we see from this stock's wild surge? The fact that retail investors could get the CEO of a publicly traded company fired shows just how dire the company's situation is. They're not even talking about profitability. They're just fighting to survive. The reason they wanted the CEO out was because he had sold some of his own shares, which the retail investors saw as a profound betrayal. It was another signal from management that slapped the investors in the face. With the CEO cashing out, the high price that the community had worked so hard to create seemed meaningless. This created a major corporate governance crisis. In such a tough market, a CEO's job is to provide stable leadership. When you fire the CEO midstream, all the project budgets, timelines, and investment decisions are thrown into chaos. Do you think the company will do well in the short term? A viewer joked, "Isn't Opendoor's algorithm supposed to be amazing?" It didn't predict that its own CEO would be fired by retail investors. While it's a joke, it reflects the fact that Opendoor's core problems have not been solved. If you're analyzing a company in the construction or real estate space, I suggest you look at two things. First, have the fundamentals improved? In Opendoor's case, its business model is still plagued by inventory risk, high debt, and an unfavorable interest rate environment. If its proprietary algorithm were truly that good, it shouldn't have ended up in this mess in the first place. A smoke alarm can't put out a fire, but it's supposed to give you an early warning. Opendoor's algorithm failed to do even that. Second, is the management team making rational or emotional decisions? The fact that the board of directors caved to the demands of retail investors is a sign of emotional governance. In the investment world, there's a concept called a governance discount. When a company's management is seen as making emotional decisions, its valuation is lowered and it becomes much harder to secure financing. What painful lessons can we learn from this for our own investment and real estate decisions? A viewer asked a very insightful question. Even if Opendoor's stock surge is driven by hype, doesn't it show that at least some parts of the real estate market are still thriving, and that the market is optimistic about a recovery? In reality, a great company can truly elevate an entire industry. Think of Apple under Steve Jobs or Nvidia under Jensen Huang. Their stock valuations were in line with their fundamental contributions to their industries. But right now, Opendoor's stock valuation is completely detached from the fundamentals of the real estate market. It's like a person who tells you they have so much money in their bank account, they can't even count it. But you later find out they don't even have a bank account because no bank will issue them one. For investors, you have to be clear about whether you are investing in a stock or a house. In my opinion, the stock market is often driven by emotion. A news report, a single tweet, or even a failed logo redesign can send a stock soaring or crashing. But real estate development is driven by economic fundamentals: interest rates, inventory, rent, labor costs, and tariffs. It's like an exam. Your score is what it is, and it determines which school you get into. You can't just send out a few memes and expect to sell out your housing inventory. It's almost impossible. You might get lucky and make money in the short term with speculative stocks, but for long-term investing, as Buffett and Munger have said countless times, you have to rely on the power of consistent investment and compounding time. So, to answer the viewer's question, from the firing of the CEO, I see no signs of long-term strategic planning or a desperate effort to turn the business around. Another question that has come up a lot in the second half of the year is, with housing costs so high and real estate companies struggling, will the financial pressure of renting be much lower than buying in the future? This really depends on the individual because everyone's city and income level is different. But I can offer a way to think about it. Imagine renting a car. You pay for the day plus gas, and that's it. That's your financial burden for the day. But if you buy a car, you have to think about the loan, the high interest rates, and the insurance, which is getting more and more expensive in places like Florida and California. The maintenance costs are also higher. Many viewers have told me that the houses I show in my renovation videos look brand new, even though I say they're old. That's because they are the result of a lot of money being poured into them. There's no such thing as effortless beauty in this world. A beautiful old house is built with money. So to answer the friend's question, you need to ask yourself about your financial plan for the next 5 years, especially for young people. Can you stably make your mortgage payments? Will buying a home affect your ability to invest in other areas? If buying a house will lower your quality of life for the next 5 years and prevent you from consistently investing elsewhere, then renting might offer you a better lifestyle. It's about keeping your destiny in your own hands. Finally, let's look at the risks for landlords. What warning signs does Opendoor's wild ride offer them? A friend asked if small landlords can succeed where Opendoor failed by being more cautious. I asked what people thought was Opendoor's biggest problem: poor property selection, high interest rates, or a cash flow crisis. The answer is all three. And this is my advice to small landlords, especially the last point. Cash flow is the lifeline of your investment. Opendoor didn't become a junk stock because it didn't want to sell its homes. It's because its expenses, loans, renovation, transaction fees were burning through cash much faster than it could bring it in. When the cash pool runs dry, the company has no hope. Opendoor was burning through investors' money. You are burning through your own. So for small landlords, just reverse Opendoor's 3 mistakes. Be very selective about the properties you buy, keep your debt low, and make sure your cash flow is at least neutral, if not positive. And one last piece of advice, which may be hard to hear. Don't base your cash flow projections on the hope that housing prices will skyrocket again in the short term. That's the fantasy that brought Opendoor down. This episode was prompted by viewers who have been asking me about Opendoor since mid-August. I was hesitant because I had already expressed my concerns about their cash-burning business model in a previous video. But I'm glad I revisited it. I'm grateful for the Opendoor employees who challenged me back then. They showed me a different perspective from inside the company and helped me break out of my own information cocoon. At its core, Opendoor's algorithm was trying to make an uncontrollable process more controllable, which is a noble goal. But as Zillow learned when their own iBuying program failed, the real world is too complex for an algorithm to fully grasp. I sincerely wish the viewers who worked at Opendoor, wherever they are now, the best in their lives and careers. I welcome you to share your thoughts on meme stocks and the future of real estate. Is the algorithm the answer? Thank you for your likes and subscriptions, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next exciting share.